blood, sand, heat. Those three things never leave you in a war zone. I was elbow deep in a soldier's abdomen, trying to clamp an artery that had been shredded by shrapnel. The tent was stifling, the smell of iron and antiseptic mixing into something you never forget. My world was narrowed to a scalpel, suction, and the sound of the heart monitor. "Colonel Hale, sir?" I didn't look up. "Not now." The young medic hesitated. I could feel his presence at my shoulder, hovering. That wasn't normal. My team knew better than to interrupt me mid-procedure unless the base was on fire. "It's about your wife, sir. Someone started a live stream back home." His voice cracked. My hands didn't flinch, but something inside me did. I forced my focus back to the torn artery. "You've got 30 seconds to explain why you're talking to me about Instagram when this man is bleeding out." He swallowed hard. "Sir, I wasn't trying to. It's just, everyone in the barracks saw it. She's on live right now. Talking about sleeping with her ex, laughing about how clueless you are." The tent around me went quiet. Not silent, no battlefield hospital ever is, but suddenly I could feel the eyes on me. Nurses, corpsmen, even the wounded who were still conscious. My jaw locked so tight I thought it might crack. "Clamp," I ordered, my voice even. My hands kept working like a machine, but my brain had gone somewhere else entirely. Later, after the soldier was stable, I stepped out into the night. The desert air was cool, but my skin burned. The medic handed me his phone like it weighed 50 pounds. The live had ended, but the comments remained. Laughing emojis, shocked faces, my wife's name trending among a handful of army spouses who'd tuned in. I wanted to believe it was out of context. Maybe drunk talk. Maybe jealousy. Anything but what it sounded like. But then hours later, the coffin got its final nail. Another soldier shoved his phone in my hand at the mess tent. A fresh Instagram post already racking up likes. My wife Sabrina, on a beach I didn't recognize, golden hour sunlight making her look like a goddess. She was in someone's arms. Not mine. The caption read, "Sparkles, with my soulmate. Finally where I belong." Sparkles. And the tag under it? Chad Whitaker. Her ex. The sound of the mess hall blurred out. Soldiers whispered, some averting their eyes. My stomach dropped, not from surprise but from the cold, precise clarity of it all. The woman I'd sacrificed birthdays, holidays, hell, pieces of myself for, had just turned my life into entertainment. And worse, it wasn't just betrayal. It was humiliation, playing on repeat across the screens of the very men I was supposed to lead. This wasn't heartbreak. This was a battlefield. And now the war had come home. When you're deployed long enough, you start rationing memories the way you ration morphine. A little here, a little there, just enough to keep yourself going. Sabrina used to be one of those memories. The way she laughed when I first met her at a fundraiser for wounded veterans. The red dress that cut through the room like a flare. She was magnetic, and when her eyes locked on mine, I thought, for once, the universe had cut me a break. We dated during my stateside rotations. I was 34, already more scars than birthdays, while she was 28, all champagne brunches and curated selfies. But I didn't care. She made me feel lighter, like maybe I wasn't just a patch-up machine for the army. At first, her quirks didn't bother me. She always wanted the best table for pictures, the flashiest vacations, the most Instagrammable moments. I chalked it up to being young, different, not hardened by deployments. But over time the gloss wore thin. Like when I came home after a 16-hour day in surgery, shoulders aching from holding retractors, and she greeted me with, "You missed golden hour. We could have shot couple photos. Now the lighting's awful." Or the time I told her about a 19-year-old private I lost on the table. She blinked once, twice, then asked, "So, does this mean you can't make it to my cousin's launch party tomorrow?" Red flags? They weren't flags, they were flares shot straight into the night sky. But I ignored them, convincing myself she'd grow out of it. That marriage, stability, and maybe a family would ground her. And then there was the money. My salary as a colonel wasn't bad, and my deployment bonuses padded things out. But Sabrina treated my bank account like her personal adventure fund. Weekend getaways, designer bags, investments in her influencer dream. The Langley family's wealth cushioned her expectations. Her father, General Raymond Langley, ran a tight ship, but her mother, Vivian, lived like a queen of Austin society. Vivian never let me forget I wasn't one of them. I remember one dinner at their estate. Sabrina's ex, Chad, came up in conversation. Vivian leaned back with her wine glass, smirking. At least Chad knows how to balance ambition with charm. "Owen, you work so hard, but don't you ever feel stuck?" Sabrina giggled, covering her mouth like it was a harmless joke. I laughed too, because what else could I do? but inside I was cataloging it. Every dig, every rolled eye, every moment I was treated less like a partner and more like a placeholder until someone better came along. Till I stayed. What? Maybe because in war you cling to anything that feels like home. And Sabrina, for all her flaws, smelled like perfume and safety after months of antiseptic and sand. Now, standing in that mess hall with a 1,000-yard stare and her beach photo glowing on a screen, I realized home had been an illusion. I'd built my castle on quicksand and the tide had just rolled in. When you marry someone, you don't just get the spouse, you inherit the family, the history, the whole damn ecosystem. With Sabrina, that meant dinners at the Langley estate, where her mother Vivian reigned over imported wine and backhanded compliments, and her father, General Raymond Langley, tried to hold the peace like he was still commanding a battalion. Vivian never liked me. I wasn't Chad and that was enough. She had this way of sizing me up across the table, manicured nails tapping her glass as if she could chip away at me with every sip. So Owen, she'd say, still, fixing soldiers? Must be exhausting. I'd bite down on my fork and answer evenly, saving lives doesn't feel exhausting, ma'am. It feels necessary. Sabrina would laugh like it was all harmless fun. Mom, stop, she'd say, but always with a smirk. She never defended me, not really. And Raymond? He'd clear his throat, stare into his bourbon and let it slide. A general in the Corps, but in his own home, he surrendered without a fight. Fast forward to the live stream and that damn beach photo. Within hours, it wasn't just soldiers whispering. Word spreads fast through military families, and by the time I got back stateside, everyone knew. My phone lit up with texts, half pity, half gossip. The betrayal wasn't private, it was broadcast. The first night back, I was unpacking gear at my place when the doorbell rang. Sabrina stood there, eyes red, Vivian at her side like a prosecuting attorney. Sabrina's voice cracked. Owen, please, it was just stupid girl talk. You know I love you. I leaned on the doorframe, still in uniform, sand clinging to my boots. Love me? You called me clueless in front of half of Austin, then posted your ex as your soulmate. That's not love, Sabrina. That's branding. Vivian stepped forward, nostrils flaring. Young man, you don't end a wedding over something so trivial. Do you have any idea what people will say? The venue, the guests. I cut her off. What people will say? They'll say your daughter was cheating and bragging about it. And you know what? They'll be right. Her face flushed red. Raymond won't let you walk away from this commitment. He's on his way now. Good, I said flatly. I'd love to hear what the general thinks about his daughter's soulmate. That's when Sabrina broke, mascara streaking down her cheeks. I made a mistake, okay? I drank too much. Chad means nothing. You mean everything. I almost laughed because the words sounded rehearsed, like a line she thought would fix it. I'd seen soldiers try to stitch themselves up in the field with duct tape and prayer. It looked about as convincing. I stepped back into the doorway, voice calm, surgical. No, Sabrina. I meant everything. To you, I was just the funding for your next lifestyle upgrade. That ends tonight. Behind her, headlights cut across the driveway. Raymond's truck. The general had arrived. Raymond Langley didn't need a uniform to command respect. Even in jeans and a windbreaker, the man carried 25 years of Marine Corps in his posture. He stepped out of the truck like he was walking into a briefing, eyes locked on me, jaw tight. What's going on here? His voice cut through the night like a drill sergeant's bark. Vivian turned instantly, her hand on Sabrina's shoulder like she was shielding her daughter from enemy fire. Raymond, thank God. Tell this man he can't just destroy our family's reputation over some childish chatter. He's humiliating Sabrina, humiliating all of us. I folded my arms. Funny. I thought Sabrina did that herself when she announced to the internet she was cheating with Chad. Raymond's eyes flicked to Sabrina. Is that true? She stammered. Dad, it was a joke. Just stupid banter. I didn't mean... I cut in, my voice sharp. You didn't mean what? The live stream or the soulmate photo with Chad on the beach? Which part was the joke, Sabrina? The laughing? The hashtags? Raymond's head snapped toward her. His voice dropped to that dangerous Marine growl. Photo? What photo? Vivian jumped in desperate. Don't listen to him, Ray. He's twisting things. He's always been too rigid too. Vivian, enough. Raymond's tone silenced her, but his eyes stayed on Sabrina. Answer me. Sabrina broke, sobbing. It wasn't serious. Chad doesn't mean anything. It's you I want, Owen. You're the stable one, the one I can build a future with. Please don't do this. I stepped forward, closing the distance until she had to look me in the eye. You don't build futures on lies, Sabrina. You build them on loyalty. And you burned that down the second you put your soulmate on Instagram while I was stitching soldiers back together. Raymond's shoulders sagged. He looked older in that moment, like the weight of command had finally broken through his armor. He turned slowly to his wife. You knew about this? Vivian's lips thinned. Raymond, I was trying to protect her. She made a mistake. We can spin this, salvage it. If he walks away now, she's ruined. Raymond's reply was a thunderclap. She ruined herself. His voice cracked like I'd never heard before, fury and disappointment colliding. For the first time since I'd known him, the general wasn't looking at me with quiet approval or subtle judgment. He was looking at his wife and daughter like strangers. Like enemies in his own house. Vivian sputtered, eyes wild. You're taking his side? Over your own family? Raymond squared his shoulders. I'm taking the side of truth. Something you've both forgotten. Silence hung heavy between us, broken only by Sabrina's sobs. I turned to Raymond, my voice calm, almost pitying. General, I respect you. But this ends tonight. Whatever happens between you and your family is your war. Mine is over. I'm done. And with that I closed the door. For the first time in years I didn't feel like the one on trial. The Langleys were the ones tearing apart. The minute the door shut I felt the shift. My chest was heavy but my mind snapped into a place it always went in combat. The zone where panic dies and planning takes over. You don't survive battlefield medicine by getting emotional. You survive by knowing the steps one by one until the bleeding stops. Step 1. Secure the perimeter. I dug my phone out, scrolling through contacts until I hit Captain Julia Marsh, JAG Corps. She'd handled enough messy divorces and harassment cases in the military community to know what was coming. When she answered, her voice was calm, clipped. Colonel Hale, what's happened? I sent her the livestream recording, the screenshots, the photo with Chad. By the time she called back, she had a plan. Start documenting everything. Calls, texts, social media. Don't delete a thing. I'll draft a restraining order petition first thing in the morning. In the meantime, shut down her access. Step 2. Cut off the enemy's supply lines. I pulled out my laptop, canceling her access to my accounts. Joint credit cards? Close. Passwords? Change. I even called my bank to freeze the emergency fund she'd had her claws in. But Vivian and Sabrina didn't wait until morning. They moved like insurgents, fast and sloppy. My phone lit up with calls from Sabrina's friends, voicemails dripping with venom. You can't do this to her, Owen. She loves you. Another, man up. Real men don't air private drama. Then the public attack started. A burner Instagram account posted a photo of me in uniform with the caption, "Funny how the army promotes men who cheat." Another rumor popped up in a military spouse's Facebook group, that I was addicted to gambling, that I'd hit Sabrina, that I'd abandoned her emotionally. None of it true. But in the military community, gossip spreads faster than gunfire. Step 3. Counteroffensive. I forwarded everything to Julia. She didn't flinch. This isn't just slander, it's defamation, harassment, and potential career sabotage. We'll hit them on every front. Hold steady. Still, the hits kept coming. By evening, my shop phone rang. It was a vendor for a veterans charity ride I'd supported last year. His tone was stiff. Dr. Hale, I don't know what's going on, but we've heard disturbing things about your character. We're pulling back until this is cleared up. That one stung. More than the insults, more than the lies. It meant Sabrina and Vivian weren't just trying to ruin me personally. They were targeting the one thing that gave me purpose outside the battlefield. My reputation as a man who served, who healed, who gave back. Step 4. Adapt and endure. I texted my best friend, Major Eric Danner. Need a place to crash. 10 minutes later, he pulled up with a spare key and a whiskey bottle. As I loaded my duffel into his truck, he asked, "You good?" I looked back at my house, the lights still on, knowing Sabrina would try to waltz back in like nothing happened. My jaw clenched. I'm better than good. I'm done being her casualty. Now I go on offense. And for the first time since the live stream I felt it, not despair, not rage. Just resolve. By dawn, it was clear they weren't going to stop. Sabrina and Vivian had gone from messy to tactical, if you could call desperation tactical. My phone buzzed nonstop. Emails from unknown addresses, comments under Army PR posts, even DMs to my colleagues. All with the same theme. Colonel Hale cheats, abuses, gambles. Don't trust him with soldiers' lives. One email even went to my commanding officer. Do you know what kind of man you've promoted? He abandoned his wife. He's a disgrace to the Corps. That one almost made me laugh. I'd been up for 72 hours in a tent, pulling men back from the brink while she was cozy on a beach with her soulmate. If anyone had abandoned anyone, it was her. Still, damage spreads fast. My CO called me in. His office was lined with medals, the kind of place that usually commanded pride. But that morning it felt like a courtroom. "Owen," he said, voice measured, "I've had some concerning complaints. I'm not passing judgment, but if this becomes a distraction, it affects the unit." "Understood." "Yes, sir," I said, handing him a folder. Inside, screenshots, recordings, timestamps. Everything Julia told me to compile. This is the truth. My wife and her mother are fabricating stories to destroy my career because I ended our engagement after she publicly admitted cheating. He flipped through, lips tightening. "You came prepared." I met his eyes. "I'm a surgeon, sir. Preparation saves lives. Right now it's saving mine." That afternoon, Julia filed for a temporary restraining order citing harassment and career sabotage. She moved fast, like a scalpel in steady hands. The petition included screenshots of the live stream, the soulmate photo, burner accounts traced back to Sabrina's friends, and even affidavits from soldiers who'd seen me get humiliated in the mess tent. At the emergency hearing, Sabrina played the victim. She wore a navy dress, hair pulled back, crocodile tears shimmering in the fluorescent lights. "He's exaggerating, Your Honor. It was girl talk. He's trying to punish me for leaving." Julia didn't even flinch. She pressed play on the live stream. The courtroom filled with Sabrina's voice. "Jensen, sorry Owen, is such a dumbass. He thinks I'm clueless. Brad is way better. He has no idea." The judge's face froze. Vivian hissed like a snake from the back row, whispering furiously into her lawyer's ear. Then Julia dropped the closer. A forensic IT report linking the burner accounts to Sabrina's home Wi-Fi. Proof she'd been the one smearing me. The judge didn't hesitate. Temporary restraining order granted. "Miss Hale, you are prohibited from contacting Colonel Hale directly or indirectly. Any further harassment will be grounds for criminal charges." Vivian stood, pointing a manicured finger at me. "This isn't over, Colonel. You've humiliated my daughter. You'll pay for this." I looked her dead in the eye. "No, Mrs. Langley. For once, she's the one paying the price." Walking out of that courtroom, I felt something I hadn't since the live stream started, the faintest flicker of victory. Small but real. The battle wasn't over. But for the first time, the scalpel was in my hand, not theirs. The restraining order didn't slow them down, it just made them sloppy. Within a week, new rumors started circling the base. I'd heard them before in whispers, but now they carried weight. Colonel Hale falsifies reports. Colonel Hale steals medical supplies. Colonel Hale gambles on deployment money. The kind of lies that don't just hurt reputations, they end careers. Vivian was behind it. I knew the style. Sharp, polished, dressed up like fact. She wasn't some hysterical spouse. She was a practiced manipulator, well-connected in Austin's social circles. She knew people who knew people, and she was pulling every string she had left. Sabrina played the doe-eyed accomplice, leaking hints to military spouses who were more than happy to spread gossip like gasoline on dry brush. By Friday, my CO called me in again. "Hale, sit." He slid a manila folder across the desk. Inside were half a dozen anonymous complaints, all copy-pasted with different signatures. Same phrases, same allegations. My stomach turned. "You know what this looks like, don't you?" he said. "Yes, sir," I answered. Calm. Always calm. "It looks like coordinated harassment. And I can prove it." What I didn't expect was the voice from the corner. "He doesn't need to prove it, sir. We can." Major Eric Danner stepped forward, arms folded. Behind him were two more medics from my unit, Staff Sergeant Ruiz and Lieutenant Patel. I hadn't asked them to come. They just showed up. "Colonel Hale's the one pulling 20-hour shifts when the rest of us are down," Ruiz said. "He doesn't skim supplies, he stretches them. I've seen him patch soldiers with less than half the tools because shipments ran late. He's the reason a dozen men went home alive." Patel added, "And gambling? The only bet this man ever makes is that he'll save the next patient, no matter the odds." My CO leaned back, lips pressing into a line. He looked at me, then at them, then back at me. "Seems you've got your unit standing tall behind you, Hale. That carries weight. More weight than anonymous slander." For a moment, the pressure in my chest loosened. Not relief, that's a luxury in war zones and courtrooms, but something close. Brotherhood. That night, over cheap whiskey in Eric's apartment, he shook his head. "They think they can outmaneuver you, but they don't know who you are, Owen. You don't lose battles. You bleed until you win." I stared into the glass, amber catching the kitchen light. "This isn't about winning anymore. It's about making sure they can never do this to me again. Or to anyone else. Eric smirked. Then let's sharpen the knives. Because brother, you're not fighting this one alone. The war had shifted. They had gossip. I had soldiers. And that's a fight they were never going to win. Courtrooms smell different than hospitals. Less bleach, more dust and old wood polish. But the energy is the same. Lives being decided, futures cut open and sewn shut by strangers in scrubs or robes. Sabrina walked in like a fallen angel. Modest navy dress, hair tied back, makeup soft, the opposite of her Instagram persona. If I hadn't known better, I'd have thought she was the grieving widow, not the one who lit the match. Vivian strutted beside her, chin high, pearls gleaming like armor. Julia leaned close. She's playing martyr. Expect tears, maybe a breakdown. Let her, I muttered. The tape speaks louder. The judge entered and the hearing began. Sabrina's lawyer launched first, voice dripping with righteousness. Your Honor, my client has been unfairly maligned by Colonel Hale. Yes, she misspoke in a private live stream, but to escalate to restraining orders and defamation claims? This is retaliation. He's weaponizing the court system against a young woman whose only crime was loving him. Private live stream? Julia's eyebrows shot up. It was broadcast to hundreds. She stood, pressed play on the video. Sabrina's voice filled the courtroom, slurred with wine but clear as a bullet. He's such a dumbass. Brad's way better. He has no idea. The room shifted. A couple gasps. Sabrina buried her face in her hands, fake sobs muffled. Vivian squeezed her shoulder like she could press the shame back into her bones. Julia let the silence stretch before sliding exhibits onto the bench. Screenshots of coordinated harassment. Burners traced to Mrs. Langley's home Wi-Fi. Emails to Colonel Hale's command. Anonymous complaints that share identical phrasing. This is not heartbreak, Your Honor. This is a campaign. The judge turned his gaze toward Sabrina's table. Miss Hale, Mrs. Langley, do you deny these accounts originated from your home? Vivian shot to her feet, voice sharp. Of course we deny it. This is slander. My daughter is the victim here. Do you have any idea what this man has put her through? Before the judge could respond, another voice cut across the courtroom. Gravel steady. Your Honor, may I speak? General Raymond Langley rose from the back row. He wasn't in uniform, but he didn't need it. Authority radiated from his stance. He stepped forward, ignoring Vivian's hissed protests. I came here today ready to defend my daughter. But after reviewing this evidence, his jaw clenched. I cannot. I raised her better than this. And I will not condone her or my wife using lies to destroy a man's career. Raymond. Vivian gasped, face twisted. He didn't look at her. His eyes locked on the judge. Colonel Hale is a man of integrity. I respect him and I support his petition. The gavel cracked down. Permanent restraining order granted. All defamatory activity must cease immediately. Retractions to be issued to the Colonel's command and business contacts. Further violations will result in criminal penalties. Sabrina's sobs turned real then, shoulders shaking. Vivian sputtered, pointing at Raymond like she could kill him with her finger. You traitor. You'll regret this. But the damage was done. I walked out of that courtroom lighter not because the war was over, but because the battlefield had shifted. The lies were in ruins. And the Langleys had split wide open. The courtroom fallout rippled like shockwaves. By the weekend, Austin society was buzzing with whispers. Not about me but about the Langleys. Vivian's carefully curated empire of garden parties and charity galas cracked open, and everyone wanted to peer inside. First hit, Raymond filed for divorce. 27 years of marriage, gone in one signature. He moved out of their Westlake Hills estate and into a modest apartment near base. Word spread fast. The general had finally broken ranks with his wife. Second hit. Vivian's friends, the same women who'd toasted her perfect family, stopped taking her calls. Without Raymond's rank and money to back her, she wasn't the queen bee anymore. Just another socialite with a fading smile and unpaid bills. Sabrina fared no better. Chad, her so-called soulmate, vanished the moment the restraining order went public. Soulmates, it turned out, didn't like legal drama or women who couldn't access their father's bank accounts. Her influencer dream fizzled when sponsors dropped her brand deals, citing reputation concerns. Last I heard, she was back living with Vivian, posting cryptic Instagram stories about haters and toxic men. Meanwhile, my world, the one they tried to bury, started rebuilding brick by brick. The restraining order and defamation ruling weren't just victories, they were armor. My CO called me into his office again, but this time the tone was different. He handed me back my folder of evidence. "Good work, Colonel. You handled this with discipline. The Corps notices that kind of thing." It wasn't a promotion, not yet, but the trust was restored. And in the Army, trust is currency. Outside the uniform, life shifted too. My reputation in the veteran community rebounded when the truth came out. Clients who'd backed away from charity work with me reached out again. One even said, "You took fire and came out cleaner." That's the kind of man we want representing us. I poured myself into medicine the way I always had. More surgeries, more lectures for young medics, more nights spent over wounded soldiers. Except now, the shadow that hung over me was gone. I wasn't the clueless husband anymore. I was the surgeon who'd walked through fire and come out sharper. Eric clapped me on the shoulder one night over beers. "She thought she broke you. All she did was give you a story no one will ever forget." Hell, half the base is calling it the Langley fiasco. I laughed, the sound rusty but real. Good. Let them remember it. Because I sure as hell won't let it repeat. Sabrina and Vivian had lost everything that made them untouchable. I hadn't just survived. I was winning. 6 months later, I stood in a garage that smelled like motor oil, sawdust, and fresh paint. My garage. Not the cramped one Sabrina had once mocked as a man cave, but a 3-bay workspace I'd bought with my own money, wired exactly how I wanted. 1 bay was for my Harley, 1 for fabricating surgical training models, and 1 just for quiet, the kind of space you need when the world has tried to drown you out. The Army hadn't promoted me yet, but the conversation had changed. Instead of questioning my judgment, my CO had me leading trauma drills for junior surgeons. "Your discipline under pressure is what we need modeled," he said. Translation: you walked through hell and men noticed you didn't break. Outside of work, something unexpected began to grow. Dr. Alicia Grant, a fellow trauma surgeon who'd been at my side in the tent 100 bloody nights, started showing up outside the hospital too. Coffee after shifts turned into dinners. Dinners into long drives where neither of us said much, but the silence wasn't heavy. It was alive, humming with the unspoken understanding of 2 people who'd both carried too much and still stood tall. She never pried about Sabrina. She didn't have to. One night, as we sat in her kitchen with rain tapping the windows, she said quietly, "You're not defined by what she did. You're defined by what you did next." And I believed her. Meanwhile, the Langley name was a punchline. Vivian's divorce gutted her finances. Sabrina, cut off and abandoned by Chad, bounced between odd jobs and late-night posts about loyalty. The same crowd that once toasted their status now whispered their downfall. The empire of appearances was ash, and they had nothing left to burn. But me? I had everything I needed. Brotherhood in my unit. A career that still mattered. A woman who didn't care about my bank account or Instagram, only about whether I came home alive. Looking back, betrayal didn't break me. It stripped me. Peeled away every illusion, every excuse, every fragile piece of hope I'd propped up for years. What was left wasn't weakness. It was steel. And as I locked up my garage that night, headlights glowing on the panhead engine I'd been rebuilding, I realized the truth. I hadn't lost a wife. I dodged a life sentence. History has a way of making villains out of people who thought they were untouchable. Sabrina believed she could humiliate me in public, then rewind the tape and play the part of the bride again. Vivian thought her name, her pearls, her country club power would shield her from consequences. But betrayal doesn't just cut the victim. It corrodes the betrayer. I walked out scarred, sure, but scars aren't weakness. They're proof you bled and still healed. They're reminders that pain doesn't last, but the lessons do. For months, people asked me the same thing. Don't you wish it had ended differently? That she hadn't cheated? That you'd never seen that live stream? And maybe once I would have said yes. But now, no. Because that night, I didn't just lose a fiancé. I shed every illusion I'd ever carried about love built on status, on appearances, on borrowed ambition. What I gained was clarity. Brotherhood that stood taller than lies. A career that didn't buckle under rumors. A chance, however fragile, at a kind of love that isn't for show but for survival. So when I look back, I don't see myself as the man who was betrayed. I see myself as the man who walked through betrayal and came out the other side sharper, cleaner, alive. Because in the end, betrayal isn't the end of a story. It's the fire that forges a new one. And this time the story is mine.